everybody, my name is Deja and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing the end of year book tag. So this is actually a pretty quick tag. It's only 6 questions, and this was originally created, I believe, by Ariel Bissett. This tag is always really confusing to me because the end of year book tag to me is like end of year, like you do it at the end of the year, but this one is actually talking about the end of the year if you don't know. So it's talking about like what books you want to read towards the end of the year, what you're going to get into going into the next year, and everything like that. So I am actually on time this year when filming this, so I'm really happy about that because I always forget about it. Thank you to Meg with Books because she just filmed and posted hers a couple days ago prior to me filming this, so it reminded me and I was like, oh yeah, I need to do that tag. So thank you to Meg for reminding me. So we're just gonna hop straight into it with the very first question, and that is, are there any books you still need to finish by the end of the year? And honestly, no. Like, I'm not a big DNFer, and when I start a book I generally finish it, so I really don't have any books that I have started that I haven't finished. Obviously I'm currently reading a couple books, but those are books that I've recently started, so I don't really have that many books that I can think of. So I'm popping in really quickly because I answered this question and I said really I had nothing like that I needed to finish by the end of the year, but that's actually wrong. There's 2 books that I do need to finish by the end of the year that I forgot to mention for some reason because I'm literally like no thoughts, head empty. There's 0 brain cells up here. So the first one is Dark Roads by Chevy Stevens. This is one that I pulled from my TBR jar, and I said that if I did not read all of the books that I pulled from my TBR jar by the end of the year, that I have to unhaul them. And this one is one that I started that was actually pretty interesting, but I had to put it down for a readathon or something. I think I was very slumpy, so I was only reading like 5 books a month. So I did not end up getting to this one in the month that I read it, so I need to read it by the end of the year or else I'm gonna DNF it. In this one we follow our main character, and I believe her name is Haley, and she lives on this place called the Cold Creek Highway, which has like a lot of hitchhikers and people like that, but it also has had like a lot of disappearances and murders. And so she really respects the land, and she was taught by her dad to respect the land, but then also to stay away from the highway so she, you know, nothing happens to her. But her dad ends up passing away, so I believe that she's left in the care of her aunt and also her police officer husband, and he uses his badge as a means to bully and control Haley. So she's like kind of overwhelmed by grief. She's not allowed to really do anything, so she ends up disappearing into the mountains, hoping that people would think that she just like left town. I didn't get to this part yet, but we also follow this other girl named Beth, and she arrives 1 year later to Cold Creek because that is where her sister Amber lived and where she was murdered. So she's estranged from her parents and is trying to seek closure for her sister's murder, and so she begins to work as a waitress at the same place that her sister worked, and she starts to kind of uncover some things, not just about her sister but also about Haley's disappearance. So this one is really good, but it's a little bit thick, and yeah, I just didn't have time to get to it yet, but I need to finish that by the end of the year or else I'm gonna have to unhaul it. And then also I'm currently in the middle of Along the River of Flesh by Christopher Triana. I've been in the middle of this one for the past couple months, and I'm really enjoying this one. I love the first book. This is the sequel to Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana, which is one of my favorite horror books of all time. I actually have a favorite horror book recommendations video. That's all my favorite horror books. If you would like to check that out, I posted that a couple weeks ago. And so this one, as I said, is the sequel to Gone to See the Riverman, which follows this woman, and she is obsessed with this killer called Edmund Cox, and she basically is like one of his little groupies. She goes to see him in prison, she writes notes to him, whatever, and so he ends up giving her a task and she gladly accepts it. And this task is to go out into basically the middle of nowhere. Like, this town doesn't even, it's not a town, it literally is just houses out in the middle of nowhere, like literally like deep south. And she is supposed to go to this house that he has out there, get this key and deliver it to this infamous riverman, which is kind of like legend lore almost. And she has no idea the horror that's to come, but she also takes along with her her disabled sister, so that kind of adds in some dynamics. And this kind of has some real life like serial killer horror, it has some familial horror, and then it also has this infamous riverman, which adds another layer of horror on top of that. It was one of the best horror books that I've ever read, and so I'm currently reading the sequel. And it's not that I don't like the sequel or anything like that, it's just an ebook, so it doesn't have an audiobook or anything like that, which takes a little bit longer for me to read. And I'm not reading it for any specific video or readathon or anything like that, so it's not as prioritized as books that are on like my spinner wheel or books I'm reading for videos or for readathons. So I just have not finished this one yet, but I definitely need to finish it by the end of the year because I hate just leaving books. Like, unfinished at the end of the year. Like, I hate doing that. It's like one of my least favorite things. I will rush at the very end of the year, the last couple days, to finish books up because I just hate carrying books over into a new year. Like, it's supposed to be like fresh. Let's have a fresh, clean start. Question number 2 is, do you have any autumnal books to transition you into the end of the year? And I have so many, and I've already been reading them because to me the end of the year is also spooky season. I've been reading a lot of spooky books, but I do have some other books that I am wanting to read as well. So to me, fantasy is a fall and winter genre. That's just my opinion. And so 2 that I really would like to read are Sorrowland and Every Heart a Doorway, but these are both on my November TBR, so hopefully I'll get to both of them. This one follows a school that is for these weird children, which are children that go through these doors into these other worlds, and these worlds are generally like amazing. So when they come back into the real world, they are kind of like traumatized because the real world is harsh. I've heard really good things about this. It's super short and I'm excited to read it. Sorrowland, all I know about this is that it's fungal fiction, so I'm really excited to read it. But this one is like fantasy horror, I think, so that is perfect for this time of year. So a horror that I would like to read is Pen Pal. I believe this one takes place in the fall. Like, if you look at it, it's a whole bunch of barren trees, fallen leaves. So I've heard this one is really excellent for the fall. And to me, as I said in my TBR, because this one's also on my November TBR, it gives to me November vibes. So I'm hoping that this one is definitely kind of autumnal a little bit. Another kind of like spooky book that has to do with like the paranormal, even though I don't like really paranormal, is Layla by Colleen Hoover. I love Verity by Colleen Hoover, even though she's my problematic queen. But this one I heard is more like ghosty, and generally I don't really like paranormal, but I don't like paranormal horror. This one is more of like a romance kind of thriller. I also love me a little thriller during this time of year. So 2 that I have that I'm interested in reading, but I don't know if I'll get to, are Dark Corners and The Sundown Motel. These ones scream fall to me. This one is a spin-off sequel to The Night Swim, and that one to me definitely gave kind of like fall winter vibes. So I'm hoping this one does the same. And then The Sundown Motel, I don't know why this one gives me like fall vibes, but it just does. So I'm hoping to read both of these, but I don't know if I will. We'll see. I also love a little cozy mystery, and there's so many like fall autumnal ones. I know that there was like the Pumpkin Spice Cafe that's been going around because Kayla read it in her video, so maybe I'll pick that one up. One that I do have that takes place on Halloween, so I need to read it like soon, like the beginning of November, is Closely Harbored Secrets. This is one of the books in the series for the Seaside Cafe mystery series, the 5th book. It says it right there, and I've read the 4 leading up to this, and I love the series. I love Julianne Lindsay, and she has a lot of like also like winter, Christmassy, holiday-y type cozy mysteries as well, because it says Brie Baker, but Brie Baker is Julianne Lindsay, who's Julie Chase, and so she has a ton of series, but cozy mysteries are perfect for this time of year, so I'm hoping to pick up a couple cozy mysteries, specifically also around like the holidays. Next question is there any anticipated releases that you're still waiting for? And by the time this video comes out, it's gonna be a no, but Midnight is the Darkest Hour just came out, and I'm reading that one for my book club pick on Patreon in combination with Haley from Haley Hughes, her Patreon. We are doing a live show together and combining our book clubs this month to read Midnight is the Darkest Hour, and this one recently just came out. And then Bookshop and Bone Dust is another one I really want to read before the end of the year, because Legends and Lattes is so cozy, and I read it right in the summer, so I feel like the second one is gonna be really cozy too, and it's like a bookshop, so I feel like it'll be perfect to read just like cuddled up in bed when it's cold out. And this one comes out November 7th, so I believe this video is going to be out after then, but as of now it hasn't come out yet. Next up is what are 3 books that you would like to get to throughout the rest of the year, and I want to do books that I own physically because there's so many I could list that I don't own physically or whatever, so I'm doing ones that I physically own. So the first one up is Pen Pal. Again, I really want to read this one. I put it on almost every single TBR this year and I still haven't read it, so I need to read this one. I would also really like to read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I read one of her other books and I really loved it, and I think I read it last year, so I would like to read like at least one a year of her books. And then also a release that I haven't gotten to that I was super anticipating is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is her adult debut, and I love Elizabeth Acevedo's writing, and I love her YA books so much. Like, they're some of my favorites. So if I love her YA books a lot, I feel like I'm going to love one of her adult books. Even though I've heard a little bit of mixed things, I still really want to read this one. And the 5th question is there a book that you think could still shock you and become your favorite of the year? Honestly, I don't know if there's a specific book in mind, but I could see a book getting all my favorites. I don't know if it'll become my favorite book of the year, but I'm not really like set in stone on a lot of the books that I have that are favorites of the year. Like, I really like them a lot, but a lot of them aren't like absolute 100% all-time faves this year. So there are definitely some books that I think could shock me, like even Pen Pal I feel like could end up with my favorites of the year, but I don't think any of them are gonna become my favorite book of the year, because my favorite book is All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. That book ate down, and it literally is like one of my faves of all time, and most of the other books are not like that for this year that are going to be on my favorites. So I feel like it could definitely become on my faves. And the last question is, have you started making any reading plans for 2024? And I definitely have. This is the first time that I'm like trying to schedule vlogs and like decide what vlogs I want to do like months out, because I'm trying to be on top of my vlog game next year, because this year I was pretty good. Like, I didn't scrap many vlogs, and I posted more vlogs than I have I think any other year. So I was definitely getting better this year, but next year I'm really trying to like be on top of my content and be on top of my vlogs, especially now that I have like a Patreon and I've been having it for a full year. I feel like there's like more responsibility that comes with booktube, and like that's not a bad thing, but I'm trying to like really like step up my game this year, because you know, I just want to be better in every aspect of my life. And starting next year I'll be going into my last year of college, but I still have a long road ahead. Okay guys, 3 semesters, and I'm gonna be doing a class over the summer because I'm doing my internship and we have a class with it. So really, like, I'm gonna say 3.5 semesters, but I will be starting my second to last semester next year. So 2025 though, oh guys, she's finna eat, even though I'm gonna go to grad school. But still, this booktube channel finna eat down, okay? So those are all the questions. This is a very short, quick tag, but I thought it would be fun to do. I really like doing this tag every year, even though I generally forget. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it to the end, leave the little leaf emoji to celebrate the transition into the end of the year, and I will see y'all in my next one. Bye, everybody. Trying to look like you're winning. I'm writing rhymes in the kitchen, soaking the moments we live in. Yeah, you got the nerve to be on me, faking a life for the hudging. If you got my number, don't add me, cause baby, I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus. Baby, don't check for me. Taking